What is up, guys? Well, real quick, if you don't know me, I'm Josh. I'm the lead pastor here, and I wanted to just take a few minutes before Crystal lays down what is sure to be an incredible message. I wanted to just have a quick conversation, and it really kind of starts with I've been explaining our church dynamic to people a little bit over the last week, and the theme that has really kind of come up is I feel like as a church body, we've been moving forward a little bit. But what's really been happening is we've watched God call us on a path, and over again, we're watching him remove obstacle after obstacle. And some of those obstacles, if you don't know, we had a year ago, we started a lead pastor search, and those usually take about 2 years, and it took us just a few months. And then another obstacle was during times of transition. Normally churches shrink, we've grown. Another obstacle was we needed a new worship leader, and we found a guy really quickly because that usually takes about 2 years as well. That happened. Baptisms, we've never been allowed to have them in service, and yet God just in a day said, no, we're doing that, and gave us permission to do that here. And over again, I'm watching God remove obstacles for us as a church. And what's neat about that is if you've ever been in the back of a traffic jam, and you're moving forward slowly, and then you get out of it, what do? You just pump the gas. You're just like, I want to make sure my car can still go, right? And I just feel like we're about to be in that point as a church body where we're about to hit the gas a little bit and really get to start sprinting after what God has called us to. And at the same time, I want us to have a heart posture that is more interested in following him than going fast. And so what I'm about to share with you, if I haven't built it up enough, is we are potentially looking at a church property. Yeah, and so the way, and I wanted to unpack how it kind of went down. So if you don't know us, we have been spiritual nomads for a little while right now, right? We've been at Conard, we've been in a hotel before. I'm using we very liberally, I'm still new here. We've been in a hotel, we've been at a baseball field, we've been all over the place. And wherever we were, there God was, right? Like God has moved through our church time and time over. And I bring that up because I don't want us to be so excited about a church that we don't actually follow his lead. He needs to speak into that. And so I'm going to give you a little bit of insight in what we're looking at, and then I'm going to ask for your insight because the big thing for me is I don't want to buy a building and lose a church. Like I want us as a church, us being the people, to have a building where we can be a little bit unhindered, but at the same time that we are still God's people moving in a way that is contrary to this world. And so a little bit of background on the place that we're looking at. God really it seems like, I don't want to speak for him, but it seems like God has been moving in this a little bit for us. And what it's kind of looked like is we have been looking at these different properties, and over again, we've gone to these properties and been like, man, if we chose this one, we'd be really forcing this fit. Like this is just us kind of just desperate for a location and not making the wise choice. And as we were looking, somebody in our congregation came forward and she was like, hey, well, I might have something for you. And in that process, her company just bought 10 acres of land that had 2 buildings, and they only needed way less acreage and not 2 buildings. And so they were just kind of like, hey, let's have a conversation. We've got this warehouse here that we don't need, and we're trying to figure out what to do with it. And so we've been in conversations with them. I went to the warehouse. It is not, just to be clear, it's not gigantic. It's not going to be massive. It's about a 10,000 square foot building with high ceilings, which I don't know if you guys know this, but that doesn't exist in New England. And so we found high ceilings. We found enough parking, which is normally the hindrance for us when we're looking for a building. We're like, oh, that's the right building, but then we've got to figure out parking, and it's just not an option. So this has all of that, plus it's got green space, plus it's got room for us to grow into. And so there's some really cool pieces to it, but there is an implication that I really want us to wrestle through. So we're going to be putting out a survey to you guys with the exact location of this place. And the location is not here. It's not incredibly far, but for some of us it would require some sacrifice, and for others, maybe coming here would be the sacrifice. But either way, we want to follow God's call. And so this church, or this warehouse is located really on the Bloomfield, West Hartford line. And so it's the northern side of West Hartford. It's actually technically about 10 feet into Bloomfield. and that's the location. So what we're doing is we're sending out a survey, and there's a link right there. Look at that. We've got a QR code right there. We're also going to send out an email after service. We're going to be pushing this out, and really we're giving you guys 2 weeks to fill out this survey. It takes about 3 minutes or less. Like, it's very, very quick. And it's really a chance for us to understand, hey, how is this going to impact you? And does it impact you enough that it's prohibitive? And so here's my ask, is that we are a prayerful people that go into answering this honestly. We don't need you to just kind of blow smoke and just like pretend like it's fine. Like, we want you to be honest about how this impacts you. But we also want to be a people that are committed to God's mission. If you don't know why, this is important, because I just gave you the what. And if you know anything about really the gospel at all, you know it's the why that gives the what value, right? You can do the same thing for 2 very different reasons, and one could honor God and one could not, right? We've built things our whole lives. We built the Tower of Babel and we built the Temple of God, and one of them was really good, this one, and one was really bad, and we just need to make sure that we're moving in the right direction. So here's my ask, that we are praying through this intentionally, that we're not so desperate for a building that it becomes an idol, but we're actually wrestling through like, hey, God, is this for us? And the why behind it is pretty simple. What we can do as a church body is incredibly hindered by us only being able to do service stuff on Sundays. What I would like us to be able to do is I'd like us to be able to have worship nights throughout the week. I'd like for us to be able to have prayer meetings. I'd like for us to be able to have a youth ministry that is thriving because they've got a space designated for them. I would love for us to have young adults be able to be freed up in their space. I would love for us to be able throughout the week to be able to press into ministry together. And that's not to say we want to consume your weekly schedule. It's just saying we want to have options for God's people to grow. That's the why. And we will find a way as God's people to do that regardless, but having a building helps a lot. Even if you look at the setup and tear down that takes to just sanctify this school every week, it's a process, and we want to be able to free our people up to be able to really move. Maybe the roadblocks move away and we can punch the gas a little bit. And so again, my ask is you've got until the end of May to fill out this survey, and it'll only take you about 3 minutes. We only need 1 per household. You're going to have the chance to say how many people are in your household. That's part of the survey. Then again, it's only 6 questions. It's very fast. We've got some frequently asked questions. I don't even think that's a fair description of it because you haven't had the chance to ask questions. But if there were questions, we've got a good idea of what they would be, and so we kind of wrote down some of the things and highlighted some big overview stuff. You might ask, well, what's the cost? Well, guys, it's way too early for us to figure that out. What we do know, based on some estimations that we have found and a lot of conversations and time that we have spent, is this is actually within our means to do, within just church best practices and within godly wisdom. And at the same time, we're still kind of unpacking some of those pieces as we move forward. So I know you've got a lot of questions right now. This survey is very specific to the locational impact, and then we've still got ongoing negotiations. We're not out of the woods yet. This thing could fall through at any point. We could come back and say, hey, our survey said we probably shouldn't do this, or God said we shouldn't do this, or we could come back and say, hey, this is all in. We don't know, but we're far enough along now where we wanted to invite you guys into the conversation. And so if you've got any questions, I will be available, but just know that this is early on. And the biggest thing we can do is, 1, fill out the survey, and even better than that, if you could just join us in prayer as we really unpack, like, is this the wise choice? Is this the location for us as we grow as God's people? So if you don't mind, let's just pray for a moment, and then I'm going to pass it to the bumper. Jesus, we love you so much, and God, we are excited about the idea of a building, and yet we know that a building is not your people. We know that your people were in a wilderness, and they were in the promised land, and they were in Egypt, and they were in all the different places, and still you were moving through them. So Lord, I just ask that wherever we are called to go, that you are leading, that you are a pillar of fire or a cloud of smoke that can guide our way, that we can follow with an assurance that we are near to you, that no matter what we're doing, we're walking in the cool of day beside our Creator, knowing that you are good and you are near. Building or no building, we're yours. We pray this in your name. Amen.